All right. Hello, everyone. The title of today's talk is Transcending Psychological Frameworks Through Self-Inquiry. And so, Mr. Within will be talking about what that means. You see, before I begin, I want you to visualize two scenes. One is a story which I'm going to tell you, and one is this random story this taxi driver told me today. And it's an Urdu story, but I will explain both of them, and then we will dive into what I mean by all sound. The first story is not more a story, it's more something people have seen, and it's that moment where you see when the elephant is first chained to something, the elephant cannot move and develops the psychology that it cannot escape. So later on, they get rid of the chain and they make it a rope attached to a to anything. And so the elephant does not move. He feels he cannot break that psychological barrier. So what that means, through a pattern of living, some attitude has developed. Now the being wants to transcend it. Man is self-aware, and so this is where the fruits of self-inquiry is found, in which you are looking at the ideas of you. You're working with the psychological frameworks that are creating a sense of identity, and the way we're working at it is by going through a process of self-inquiry, by you naturally going into some nature place, some nature trail, go beside a stream, and sit down beside all life, and through your silence and stillness of being, remember who you are. As an existential being, as an existential awareness, as an awareness to all manifestation. Do you see? So the first story is that. The second story, in which this Urdu taxi driver told me, he very profoundly said the story, and I feel he was thinking as if like he was saying the story to me as if he felt he was saying it to his son or something. I don't know, he was getting very into saying the story. And so pretty much what the story is that he says it's the story about humility, and he says there's this donkey in which this person puts swords or something. He said swords. So there's this donkey who has swords, and this donkey is moving, and some way during the destination where the sword salesman had to take the donkey falls one time into a river, and as it falls into the river, some swords fall out or something, and it comes back up, and the guy doesn't realize it at first. The owner doesn't realize it. This happens a while, and the donkey realizes every time I go into this water, things just become lighter, so why not do it, right? So the donkey's actually being pretty smart there. And so the story goes on in which the donkey's doing it, and then the merchant realizes, and so the merchant, because he realizes it, one day puts cotton on the back of the donkey, lots of cotton. And so as he puts cotton, when the donkey gets there, he puts his back in the water to get rid of the sword kind of mentality he had, and he sees suddenly it becomes heavy. And suddenly it becomes something where it's so heavy so he cannot get out of it, do you see? And so the framework of the psychology of that donkey is changed. And so it's not simply the framework of the psychology of a donkey, because we as human beings don't have a donkey's experience, we're considering that experience. Do you see? So it's very important to see that when man gets rid of the stories that are separating him, he is the intelligence of the storyteller. What that means is that the voice of the storyteller is found within the character. The character looks around, begins to see everything in manifestation is connected in ways that can never be spoken. And so poetry is infinite. The catalysts that are required to take consciousness beyond what it considers to be an illusion is direct experience. So what that means is what self-inquiry does is it questions your idea or who you think you are to a point where you are actualized and you're present in your experience. So you're like, wait a minute, I'm not this because my experience is going in this manner. And so we begin to see that what happens to man is a movement. It is a movement in his understanding of the frameworks of psychology and how he is developing identity. There are many patterns we're lost in, and our awareness to these patterns is our clarity, because then we are free from our chains, because we did not need to create it in that manner. And so the present moment is profound.